Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program will begin in 5 minutes.
Not long ago, they were Generation Z, Gen Z, Zoomers. But now, they are the pandemic generation, the lockdown generation. The question is, will they become a lost generation? The new normal has been an overwhelming experience for all of us, but an especially profound one for today's young people. For many, their hopes and dreams have vanished before their eyes, and the future remains uncertain for the rest. What happens to them today will shape the way they see the world tomorrow. Will they view our nation as a land of hope, opportunity, and unlimited potential, or as something else entirely? Waiting to see what happens isn't an option. The time to act is now by giving them the tools, resources, and support they need to navigate uncertain times, reach their potential, and create a better future for themselves, their families, and communities. Junior Achievement's proven programs can help them do just that. But we can't do it alone. We are prepared to deliver life-changing experiences to young people, whether they are in person or virtual. But we need your support now if we are to make this happen. An investment today can help create a brighter and more just future. But hope can't wait.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Janet Johansson, and as a kid, there was something inside me, and in high school, I found out the name through Junior Achievement. It's called Entrepreneurship. Today, I'm the CEO and founder of BevSource in the Lab. We make dreams a reality for beverage entrepreneurs. We do all of their back-end operations and development, and then right here at the lab, consumers like you get to taste what's new in beverage. Today, I sit on the board of Junior Achievement, and on behalf of the board, the staff, and the students, I welcome you to the 2020 Reimagined Junior Achievement of the Upper Midwest Business Hall of Fame, a night of inspiration. BevSource is this year's presenting sponsor, and I have the honor of presenting our brand new CEO, Sarah Juk. Sarah came to us on July 1st after 10 years with College Possible. She was their executive director and chief advancement officer. Prior to College Possible, she was a senior leader at Junior Achievement of the Upper Midwest. Since taking on the CEO role, Sarah has shared with us a vision of innovation, equity, and engagement, and I'm excited to see the organization under her leadership. Please join us in welcoming Sarah.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. On behalf of the Junior Achievement staff, Board of Directors, and our presenting sponsor, BevSource, I'm pleased to welcome you to the 2020 Reimagined Junior Achievement Hall of Fame, a night of inspiration. During these ever-changing and challenging times, Junior Achievement is evolving and innovating our programs to meet the changing needs of education. We're focused on supporting students and providing inspiration and hope for tomorrow. Tonight's event allows students, parents, educators, and the business community to convene for an all-inclusive virtual experience, connecting our communities of the Upper Midwest. This virtual event will highlight interviews I recently had with 5 past Hall of Fame laureates, discussing topics related to today's current events, the impact on our future, and how students might navigate it all on their path to achieving success. Thank you to tonight's virtual donation sponsor, Wells Fargo. If you would like to make a gift this evening, you can use the form below, or you can text Inspiration 2020 to 50155. Tonight's laureates possess the skills, demonstrate the leadership, and epitomize the values and ethics that we seek to cultivate in today's youth. I was inspired by the insights they shared, and we look forward to showcasing those conversations here tonight. I'm thrilled to be co-hosting our event tonight with Aria, Junior Achievement Student Entrepreneur of the Year.
Thanks, Sarah. I am so excited to be here with you tonight supporting Junior Achievement. I would like to share a little bit about my experience as a JA student and entrepreneur. One of the biggest things that I have learned from my JA experience is that it's okay if something does not go according to the plan. When starting a business, planning is a crucial step in order to improve efficiency. However, through my JA experience, I have learned to have a positive outlook on failed plans. When my company, Mayu, did not do too well on our first competition, Junior Achievement has reinforced the importance of learning from past mistakes. This led us to have a positive outlook on our first loss, and we ended up winning first place at our second competition, which happened to be the JA Pitch Fest. The impact of COVID-19 has been significant to individuals, businesses, and our community. Let's hear more from our past laureates about how COVID-19 has affected them both personally and professionally.
Well, I've seen this as both a great challenge and a great opportunity navigating through this period of COVID-19. I first was aware of it. I was out in California. I got a call from CNBC. Would you come on and talk about this new novel virus that's coming out? This is in January, mid-January. And so I did, and I said, well, I'm really nervous because I can't predict everything that's coming. But then went in and talked about the importance of vaccine and what was going to come. Since that time, I've spent an enormous amount of time with corporate executives through Zoom calls, personally calling up people, getting their advice, and also offering them thoughts, and then sharing that in writing in various publications I've read in, like Fortune magazine. And the whole idea that I've had is, how do you integrate the complexity of a crisis of health, which has been my field for the last 30 years, and the economy, with now the racial crisis, and with an election coming up, and the whole question of leadership and who's leading and how are people leading. So I've talked to a lot of leaders and tried to bring these things together, sometimes a bit ahead of my time, so people don't fully appreciate the intertwining of these crises.
COVID-19 has thrown a little wrench into our normal activities, but I think it's all about attitude. And we've been married 52 years. We've probably never spent so much time together as we have this past 6 months.
The meeting scene has really been very unique in terms of the number of Zoom meetings we have on a daily basis is rather extreme. A lot of it revolves around the University of Minnesota because of the $4 billion campaign that we're chairing, and so that and the foundation meetings, we do a lot.
We miss the personal interaction with people, and we've had the opportunity to see a few friends in very, very small groups and realize that for 6 months we've just been seeing them on a flat screen, and it's these little slivers of hope and happiness that have kind of kept us going. I think we treasure things that we used to take for granted.
It's been a challenge for us at the Page Foundation because we have events where we recognize our new scholars every year, in person, on stage. We have a seminar every year for our scholars at which we provide opportunities for them to sit down with professionals from any number of different areas, help them develop skills for the future. We haven't been able to do any of that. Although this year we're going to try to do some of that virtually, some of the seminars, or many of our scholars perform their service in schools. Well, that can't be done. So we're trying to adapt to give them opportunities to be of service. And hopefully in the next year or so, we'll be back to some semblance of normal.
I'm not sure we always appreciate things we take for granted till all of a sudden we don't have them. So not only have I stayed very close with my family and been very close to home because of my age being in the target market for the disease, but I also have acknowledged interdependence. I've always been aware of it, but somehow that sense of wanting to thank the FedEx person who comes, or wanting to thank the mailman, or wanting to thank the people who are helping us with our food, and acknowledging how intertwined we are as community. And I think I've also felt grateful, particularly grateful for business. I realize that business is a way to create jobs, and that jobs are, without question, the best philanthropy. So, having been in business all my life and been very excited to create jobs and grow, I've been grateful for that, but also concerned. Concerned because I recognize that COVID, well, certainly for our business, our travel business, COVID has had a dramatic impact, but so many are suffering from that. And I'm excited for businesses to be back up and running. But I also think in this time with political discussions that it's really important to remind ourselves that business is a force for good, that it's business that uses its profits to fund nonprofits like Junior Achievement. It's business that creates jobs. And whether it's right or wrong now in the long run, up until now, business has been providing a lot of health care. Now without business, or with business slowed down, we have all kinds of repercussions that should make us truly value business. Business needs to be well led, and I love what Junior Achievement does, because Junior Achievement teaches young people the value of fulfilling needs, bringing products to market, and doing them ethically, and creating jobs and creating income, all of which makes an enormous difference. And if we didn't appreciate it before, we appreciate it now.
As a high school senior about to graduate and choose a college and a major, facing an uncertain economy and job market can feel intimidating. Let's hear our laureates share their advice for individuals, leaders, and organizations in today's economy.
You know, young entrepreneurs who are unbelievably creative people have really faced setback in terms of not being able to be involved with people, not being able to be involved with the community and develop their ideas. What they really need to do, though, is to continue to think about the idea, develop the idea, and do not get discouraged, because the opportunities are going to present themselves as we come out of this COVID shutdown, and a lot of people are going to be looking for new ideas and opportunities, and you're going to be welcome to the community.
And I think those individuals should try to find mentors, people that have gone before them. We have a great community of people that have been very successful with new ideas. It's one of the things that gives me great pride. I love this community, and there's such a wealth of creative, imaginative people, and I hope young people will search. People have time now to give advice.
It can be challenging, but that doesn't mean that we, sit on our hands and bemoan the fact that we can't have the personal connections. We have to figure out ways around the problem. That's what we've been doing. I think that's what we all have to do. If you can't, spend time in a classroom, maybe you can spend time with a small group of young people virtually. I'm just trying to think of the other ways that, those of us who have the opportunity can still be involved in providing examples for young people to see of what life can be. For many young people, and it really doesn't much matter where they come from, whether they're in Minneapolis or the metropolitan area or out in rural Minnesota, having a vision of what's possible creates possibilities. So we have to figure out ways to show kids what is possible.
I don't think anything is going to permanently change, because the only permanent thing is change. Perhaps I'd say one thing that is immutable is that our hope is in the young people, that the amount of innovation, the commitment, the caring, the commitment to the environment, the commitment to more just workplaces, the commitment to each other, that these are things that are characterized really by this young generation. And now they will have been through something that none of us ever experienced, people my age. They will have proven their own resilience, and they will have witnessed the extraordinary amount of creativity and innovation that comes from these very difficult, challenging times. I hope they'll be flexible, because that's really the key, I think, to success in business and in our personal lives, is to be flexible and adaptable and patient. Some small businesses are doing brilliantly. Some understood what their competence was and changed their product, which is something that probably in JA many people have learned to do, and that is to start out thinking you're going to make one thing and then finding out that there's a market for something else, and being adaptable and being able to sort of change your business model when necessary. And you can have a strategy, but then strategy meets opportunity, and from time to time you have to be opportunistic as well. Just believe in yourself. Be honest with yourself. Make the tough decisions, and remember that you are your greatest resource, and that you will survive this, and you will find another way.
During the financial crisis back in 2008 and 9, I wrote a book called 7 Lessons for Leading in Crisis. And lesson number 1 was face reality, starting with yourself. And I found in this case, a lot of people wouldn't face the reality. They wouldn't realize this is going to go on a while. They thought, oh, it's all going to be over. 6 weeks, furlough our people, have them all back. No, we're not going back to normal. In fact, I've thought through what is the new normal, because I think we're going to be at this for a year and things will never come back to the way they were. So the progressive organizations out in front really thought through what's the new normal look like, and did extraordinarily well from what they thought was a disaster. So I think organizations are doing that, are figuring out how to serve during this crisis. I know my former company, Medtronic, really ramped up 4 times its ventilator productions and took its lower-end ventilator and actually open sourced it, and learned a lot from working with organizations like Tata and Tesla and others. So it's been an opportunity for creativity, and I think the organizations are innovative, creative, and flexible, have really flourished. And I think we as humans have to do that. So the old cliche they also wrote about, never waste a good crisis, I think people have used that crisis to reinvent themselves, are the ones that are going to come out of this the winners. The ones that thought business as usual will come back are going to find themselves not doing so well.
You're only on this planet for a very short time, and you have a little plot of land, and your job is to water that grass and to mow it and to tend it and take care of it and leave it better than you found it. And I think especially in these times, that is our job. We have a very small space that we need to love and to help grow, and then we'll be whole again. And it is our job to leave the community better than we found it.
We cannot overlook the widespread racial injustice and social unrest in our community right now. Let's hear our laureates as they reflect on recent events.
I'm a firm believer that where we begin is looking in the mirror and sorting out who we are, how we treat people, how we respond to people, making sure that our reactions and interactions with people are based on who the people we are interacting with are, not on some perceived stereotype. I don't know any other way for us to certainly overcome these social and racial justice issues that we face, other than individually and intentionally looking at ourselves and deciding who we are and how we are going to treat other people. And I think from that flows the larger solution. We have to end it within ourselves. All of us no matter who we are, have biases. And how we act on our own biases is the most important step we can take. We talk about, living in a colorblind society. That would be nice if we could do it, if that was the society that we had, but that's not where we are. And more importantly, living in a colorblind society should not mean living in a society that is blind to racial inequities. Each of us has the power to change. We like to think that the issues of race we confront are somebody else's problems. And how do we solve somebody else's problem? It's our problem. It's each of us individually. And that's where it begins. And as I say, from there it flows to the larger problem.
Companies are just collections of people. And I think that many companies in Minnesota have been concerned for several years about attracting more diverse populations. But the real focus on equity is different than just finding ways to employ a range of people with different racial backgrounds. I think that the dislocation, the pain that we've seen, the outbreaks of violence or protests have made leaders at all levels more introspective and perhaps focused us more on the policies that we were unaware were reducing access and making it less equitable. I think that each business is going to have to find its own way. One of the things I love about business and about corporations is that they understand what enables them to succeed. And one of the most important things for a business is to be a healthy business, you need a healthy community. And I think that this recent times have pointed out places that we have been naive and not aware. But now I think we're going to see with new eyes and hear with new ears, and that we're going to recognize that the long-term sustainability of our businesses and of our communities really depends on a more equitable future for all. And the exciting part of that is the talent that will be released, the excitement that comes when you have diverse groups that are innovating together and you come from different points of view and you come up with better answers. So this is going to be a more exciting future than ever. I don't feel the least bit concerned. We're having growing pains. We have new understanding, but we're going to do something about it together.
For all of us here in Minneapolis, it's been an incredibly painful time with the murder of George Floyd, not that far from where I live, and with all the businesses on Hennepin Avenue boarded up during that terrible weekend, the end of May, the 1st of June, and that's less than a mile from my home. It's been really hard, but I think it's opened our eyes to the depth of racial injustice. And personally, I've made a process of calling many of the African Americans, people of color, getting their opinions, and they're really feeling comfortable and much more honest and open now. And I think it's caused us who, you might say, have had a lot of white privilege over the years to recognize just how bad it's been. I don't know any black people who have not experienced discrimination by police. I mean, even the people in the highest level positions, a CEO friend of mine, Ken Frazier of Merck, fantastic human being, he told me about what he experienced. It's just shocking to me. The CEO of one of the world's leading pharmaceutical company would experience that. I've never experienced that. So I think it's brought home to us how much work we have to do, and how much we've made progress, but not how it's time to move a lot faster. And so I think companies are really taking this on, and that's really encouraging. And I see them really being much more aggressive at addressing those issues.
The facade that we had, that things were just fine, we've learned that they aren't. And, you know, it's interesting. In terms of issues of race, it's important that we make sure that everyone gets treated fairly, everyone gets treated with respect, everyone gets treated the same. Clearly, we have taken a step as a community that we think allows us to not only have our biases, but to express them, and to express them in ways that are ugly. And I think that's the eye-opener that sort of we all lost sight of. We all, I think, are pretty surprised. You know, and it's interesting, because from my sort of personal standpoint, as long as you treat me fairly, I don't much care what you think about me, as long as you are fair. And at some level, sort of, that's what we were striving for. But we have now opened up this Pandora's box that allows us to not only not treat others fairly, not only allows us to not respect others, but seems to encourage us to actively act on our biases. And I think that has been an eye-opener for all of us.
Our laureates have great advice for both students and professionals. Let's hear some of their words of wisdom.
I think leaders in the community today during this very difficult period of time, both socially and economically, need to reach out and explain to the community, to people that respect them, where that they can be a voice of reason and tell people to be strong, stay in there, be supportive, but you got to do it personally, and you need to really reach out.
Never give up. Never give up. And I think those are the kind of people that have made these two cities strong. We need to empower the next generation to feel that way too and not get discouraged. We'll come out stronger than before. Instead of new normal, I love what people say when they say better normal. And I do think there's a silver lining in all of this, because we've had time to evaluate and realize what really is important, what really matters in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And we'll roll up our sleeves and we'll all get to work. I know it's going to happen. Very optimistic.
I've always had a sense of self-confidence, hopefully not arrogance, but self-confidence in being able to make decisions. And when there are hurdles or obstacles or challenges, figuring out how you work your way through it, as opposed to complaining about it, being intimidated by it. There is the saying about when life gives you lemons, you have to figure out how to make lemonade, right? There's an answer, or at least some action that we can take with most things. I mean, there are some things that happen that we have absolutely no control over. And In those situations, it's a matter of figuring out, okay, this has happened, how do I go forward? As opposed to, this has happened, and I sit and dwell on it and feel bad about it. I've been lucky enough to have that sort of forward vision, that forward-looking way of approaching life. And I recognize that not everybody is blessed with that good fortune, but it really does make a difference. Here's the problem. Okay, now let's analyze what the solutions might be, and not just react to them, but think through what are the possible solutions, how do I get to those possible solutions, how do I persevere, how do I have the strength to overcome. Analyze all those things and then start down the path. Back when I was playing football, when I was waived by the Vikings, one day I was a professional football player, the next day I was unemployed. What do you do in that situation? Fortunately, instead of looking back and saying, woe is me, somehow managed to look forward and say, okay, where do we go from here? And as it turns out, I was only unemployed for one day and moved on to the Chicago Bears and went forward, as opposed to dwelling on the fact that I had been released by my employer. Those things aren't easy to do. Having goals, having objectives, those things are important.
I think for students, we spend so much time worried about whether you're in class or whether out of class. Yes, you may not have all the social life that you will have again and that you had once before, but you can use this time to do your work, to learn, to engage in new ways, and in fact, to network in positive ways, being careful how the internet is used, but you can still maintain your friendships. You can use the internet to escape your closest world and to learn about new worlds or teach yourself new things. Whatever you do with integrity. Wherever you go as a leader. Whenever you serve with caring. Whenever you dream or innovate, dream with your all and never ever give up.
I'm in touch with a lot of young people, and high school students, college students. I really empathize with what they're going through because these are times of really important relationship building. And we have to be honest and say it's harder to build relationships online than it is in person. And missing your senior year of high school and not having your graduation. I have a lot of empathy for the young people going through this. But I think they're going to have to rethink their life and their careers. Some of them are going to volunteer organizations. Some of them are doing contact tracing this summer. This would be a great time for a gap year and going overseas, but hey, people can't travel overseas. And so, there may not be the opportunities out there to do that. But I think they're going to have to be very creative and look for those opportunities rather than expecting a dozen employers come to them. Now that will ease off after we have a vaccine, but during this period, it's a crucial time. You don't want to lose a year. And I think the same is true for high school and college students. So the making the most of it. Look, there is nothing more important than innovation and entrepreneurship in our society. The big companies are not going to be adding more employees. I can tell you they're going to automate a lot of those jobs out of existence. We're talking about a huge employer like McDonald's, but the jobs, the creativity is going to come from opportunities, entrepreneurs, and people that come up with new ideas. Dick Schultz started Best Buy, and now they got 125,000 employees or 150, and so that's where the jobs are going to come from. So never think that you can't compete with the big guys. If you got a better idea, you'll always win.
Janet Johansson, the entrepreneur from BevSource, has demonstrated her leadership and creativity during this time. She was a JA student just like me. Let's hear more insights and advice from her.
When I was in high school, my favorite memory of junior achievement was learning the stock market. That really drove my interest in getting a finance degree. I also studied in Japan and learned about their business structure. The other favorite memory that I have of junior achievement is time value of money, and I love teaching that. And when I teach and mentor the kids in JA company program, I give them the chart and the spreadsheet, and I remember the teacher leaning in and going, "What does that mean? If I put $50 a month away, what does that mean?" And I gave them the chart. And so not only does junior achievement, when you volunteer, I think help the students, but it helps everybody around them and probably their parents too. As a student, I think it's critical for them to see us as volunteers in the classroom or via Zoom. You know, as a kid, I think we all grew up thinking we could be a teacher, a farmer, a firefighter, and a police officer. And now junior achievement can bring all of these different career opportunities to them, whether it's an architect or an accounting person. The advice I would give to students right now during a pandemic is this is an awesome opportunity. Most of the great businesses were built out of the Great Depression. This is the greatest time in your history. You probably will never see a time like this again. And this is your time to take action. Do something, start something, fail at something. Fail 3 times at something. You're young, do it fast. My advice for small businesses is to give yourself grace and to try and live in gratitude. Lots of things are going on around us that aren't great, but focus on what really is important to you and what you love, and that will come through in your work and in your family life. So live in gratitude. Solve a need for a customer. That's why I continue to volunteer with Junior Achievement. I need that constant reminder. Lots of times I come up with things that I think are a good idea, but really entrepreneurship is really solving a need and helping society be better.
Some other JA students also had questions for our laureates. Let's hear the inspiring responses the laureates had to their questions.
I'm so excited how many more women are starting businesses. At one point, I was appointed to chair the National Women's Business Council, which is a bipartisan council in Washington that promotes entrepreneurship in women. And we have more women entrepreneurs than ever before, and that's very, very exciting. And also, we have more women of color who are beginning businesses. Maybe that's because JA has helped to train them. I don't know. It's cause and effect. But in any case, one of the things I found as a woman in business is that with the understanding that women didn't have an even playing field, it would have been easy from time to time to be less accountable myself and to blame the situation. I'm a woman, you know, they didn't want to buy from a woman, or they didn't want to make a loan to a woman. Rather than saying, is my business plan solid? Is there anything I could communicate better? Am I making the best possible sales presentation to represent my product? So yes, it's true. For the longest time and still, women have less equal playing field. And yes, it's definitely true that this is true of people of color. Nonetheless, in the end, we can only control ourselves. So what we have to do is have the right plan, put the energy into it, hold ourselves accountable, and not spend too much time blaming anyone else, because often that's just self-defeating.
When you are exploring new business ideas, you have to be flexible because there's going to be a broad array of skill sets that one needs to look at different opportunities. You need to assess what your skills are and what your interests are and where you're going to fit in best with the organization and the people, and really the premise in terms of what the business is trying to accomplish. You really want to be able to agree with it, support it, and move forward with it with a very, very open heart.
And know there will be roadblocks, and don't be discouraged.
Right.
Keep on going for your goal.
As a professor at Harvard Business School, where we basically 100% online, I've had to learn a lot of new ways of teaching. And I find it's very easy to give a lecture using PowerPoint. That's not hard. There are lots of sites to do that. Running an interactive classroom we've now limited it to 50 people, but still, and watching faces and knowing who wants to be called on is really hard. And that's a real challenge. Harvard Business School in particular has been very aggressive at changing equipment, getting us dual screens, and helping us in ways to make this easy, make it seem more like a simulated classroom. We've got a few of those simulated classrooms. But I think this, again, is a question of adaptability. And I think in this period, we've got to all be adaptable. We can't just get rigid and say, well, I'm just not going to do anything. No, we've got to adapt to the environment, staying safe on the one hand, on the other hand, adapting new ways of teaching and engaging people online. So you're not just lecturing, but you're actually seeing people online. And I think it's working surprisingly well. And more innovation. We can get more CEOs and other leaders to come into our program.
When I was growing up, you get to that age when people start asking you what you want to do when you grow up. I would say I wanted to be a lawyer. Watching too much Perry Mason on television and hearing, I didn't know any lawyers, didn't have any lawyers in my family, but hearing stories about how lawyers made lots of money, didn't work too hard. For the 10, 11, 12-year-old, that sounds pretty good. The other thing that influenced me in terms of an interest in the law was I was 8 years old when Brown versus the Board of Education was decided. That case, in its simplest terms, made clear that fairness matters, that equality matters. And that was a big influencer for me. Along the way, I stumbled into football. Almost literally. My brother, who was ahead of me in school, played, and I followed in his footsteps. And it turns out I had some aptitude for it. People often seem to be in awe of the fact that I was a professional football player, that I was a lawyer, that I became a judge. As people, we can do more than one thing. Indeed, we can do more than one thing at a time. One of the great things about being young is the world offers so many opportunities. But having a vision of those opportunities, as we noted earlier, having an understanding of what those possibilities are, is key. And for me, I saw the law as that sort of North Star, if you will, for my future. Sidetracked a little bit by professional athletics, but never losing sight of that ultimate star.
Thank you, Aria, for being my co-host this evening. I think we both found ourselves inspired by the words of our former laureates. And I can say that I'm optimistic about the future of our community, knowing that there are students like you ready to be our next leaders. Thank you to our virtual production sponsor, Voya Financial. Thank you to our Laureate Spotlight sponsors, Great Clips, LDI, John and Nancy Lindahl, and United Healthcare Optum. If you have not made a gift in support of Junior Achievement students yet tonight, I encourage you to make your donation now. Junior Achievement is committed to providing our innovative, relevant programs to all students in our region. With your support as volunteers and donors, we can prepare the future employees, leaders, and entrepreneurs that our organizations, community, and economy need to thrive. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Laureate.